welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and joining me today is Dana Pfeil, who is a Deputy District Attorney and candidate for Department 1 Superior Court Judge. Dana, welcome.
Thank you, Joel.
Pleasure to have you on. I believe we had you on in kind of a debate forum, and this is the first time we've had a chance to just chat one-on-one, so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on making the general election in the judge race. I know that was a hard-fought primary.
It was. It was.
And so rising to those top two is definitely an accomplishment. So congrats.
Thank you. Thanks.
Now, as you're preparing for the final race here between you and Mr. Swift,
Mr. Barrett.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Between
you and Mr. Barrett, I'm imagining that you're getting your strategy ready and hoping to be successful this fall.
Absolutely.
So I know that you've had a lot of history in this county. You've been away for a while and come back, and I was hoping for those who aren't familiar with you, if you could kind of give us a little bit of your history, starting with where you were born.
Sure. I was born in Long Beach. I don't think I spent much time there. I think my mother was actually on the beach when she went into labor, which is why I ended up being born there, because I didn't live there at the time. And then when I was in the first grade, I believe, we moved to Sonora. And so I grew up there with my family. Most of my extended family also lives there, which is very nice. So I'm very close with all of them. I went to elementary school there, and I graduated from Somerville High School. And when I went to college, I went to Columbia because it was local, close to my family. And of course, you can't beat the price as compared to university. So I got some general credits out of the way. And then I decided to become an attorney in the fourth grade. And so after I decided to do that, kind of everything after that was planned towards that goal. So I went to Fresno State, and I majored in business administration with a legal environment on the business field. And once I graduated from there, I went directly to the San Joaquin College of Law, which is in Clovis, it used to be right next door to Fresno. Now they've kind of merged into one big, huge conglomerate. And then after I graduated from law school, of course, you put your head in the sand, you study for the bar. And I took the bar exam in July of 1999. And in August, my husband and I, with our son, moved back to Sonora. I'm a country girl, to be sure, to the core. And Fresno, while I'm sure has very good things about it, is quite different from country life. So, that's what brought me back.
Going back to the fourth grade, what was it that made you know you wanted to be an attorney at that point?
So we had a career day, and we were supposed to pick something that would interest you. So I can't remember back that far why that sounded glamorous or important, but it just did, and it stuck. And as I sit here now, I believe, because I am a Christian, that the Lord puts you on the path that you're supposed to be on. Whether or not you listen to that, is a different thing. And so I think the only logical explanation for me is that the Lord put me on that path, and I've been incredibly successful. And so I can only think that I'm doing the right thing.
Right, and I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon and a firefighter, but I didn't take those paths. So it's kind of neat to see someone at that young age set a goal and reach that goal.
Yeah.
Moving back to Calaveras, you said you're a country girl. You love this area, but what is it about this area that you really love?
So I, at one point in time, not to sidetrack, I did not think I could have children. And so in my second year of law school, I got pregnant with my husband. So that was exciting. And so when, after we had our son, I wanted him to have the same upbringing that I had. Small community, close-knit, not the crime of the big city. And I wanted him to, experience being able to grow up around a lot of extended family like I did. You know, I wanted my son to have the advantages that I did.
And personally, is there anything about the foothills that you like in terms of the hobbies outside of your busy career that you like to pursue?
Oh yeah, so we like to hike. We go up to Pinecrest a lot. We love to antique. So my husband likes to collect primarily bottles. So, you know, there's the Calaveras Soda Works, there was a Sonora Soda Works, there's Amador. So we like to go into the various antiquing stores and, you know, search for finds and stuff like that, local history type stuff. My husband is a huge museum buff. He loves history. So we try to find the, like the old railroad station in Angels Camp. So we track that down and we try to see where the tracks led and stuff like that. So you can't do that in the big city.
And so right now you live in Tuolumne. Do you ever think you might move over to Calaveras? Is that like a long-term goal, or?
Well, so I have two kids, both of which are in high school. My son's a junior, my daughter is a sophomore. And so my husband and I had talked about moving over here. I've been commuting for, gosh, nearly 15 years. So it's like, hey, it's your turn, you know? And so, but I have my kids to think about, and my kids are very involved in their school. And so, you know, we definitely want to come over here. We're actually looking, a very nice lady named Nancy Whittle is helping us try to find a home in Angels Camp. And so if we can find the right home, we absolutely would. And my kids are so great that they're like, yeah, Mom, you know, that's a cool thing. We'd be willing to help you out with that. So.
But it's tough to kind of uproot them in the middle of that high school career.
It is tough. I mean, I was lucky enough to spend all 4 years at one high school. You know everybody in small communities like this. You have all your friends, your activities. So, you know, that's a tough decision to take them away from that.
Going back to when you moved back after you finished up law school, I like kind of the story of how you got to where you are now. So what was your first job in the area? Okay,
so my first job, I was interviewed by Ken Foley. It was on my birthday, and he invited me over, kind of like a friend of a friend of a friend knew of an attorney who was looking to hire someone. So I show up, he's like, hey, let's go to court. I'm like, okay, you know, I don't know anything from anything. So we go to court, and he's introducing me to all these people, and we get back, and he's like, yeah, so do you want a job? I'm like, yes, please. And so he hired me on my birthday. And it was a great experience because, as you know, Ken handles a little bit of everything. So it was a really great experience to expose me to civil law, criminal law, family law. Yeah, so that's how that one went.
And then what was next?
What was next was I was arguing it's a criminal motion, kind of quasi-civil, for this lady who was trying to get her driver's license back from DMV. And the public defender at that time, Jerry Osmer, happened to be in the audience. And at that time, Jeff Tuttle was his partner at the public defender's office, but he had been appointed to the district attorney position. So there was a vacancy there. And so Jerry saw me arguing this motion, and he went and talked to Ken, and I guess they discussed my competency. And the next thing I know, Ken is like, hey, you know, Jerry wants you to come work with him at the public defender's office. You know, and I love criminal law. So I was like, well, of course, you know, that'd be awesome to do criminal law full time. So I did that. Yeah, so.
So you had some experience there, and then eventually you moved on to the DA's office.
Yes.
And I guess that was about 14 years ago now, or a little bit more?
No, I will have been with the DA's office for 13 years in November. So about 12 and a little over 12 and a half.
Okay, okay. And was that under Jeff Tuttle?
Yes.
Okay, and he passed very unexpectedly, you know, a few years back. What was it like working with Jeff?
Working with Jeff was great. Jeff was so laid back. It's so nice, you know, as a district attorney, you have a lot of discretion. And it's so nice when you have a boss who trusts you to use your discretion and use it appropriately. So working with Jeff was, you know, and he's such a nice guy. I mean, he was such a nice, generous, gentle man. It was great working with him.
Over your years at the DA's office, could you just tell the viewers a little bit about your progression as a student of the law and where you were then versus where you are now?
Sure. So when I started, the district attorney's office, when I started, had 4 attorneys. counting the DA. And we had 2 departments to run. So I handled all of the misdemeanor calendar. And at that time, we also did the dependency calendar, which, are the Child Protective Services cases. So I would handle those. And then very quickly, because there's a lot of work to go around, not among a whole lot of people, I started doing felony preliminary hearings. And then after about 2 years, I transferred full-time to the felony department, so I was handling only felony cases. I was the domestic violence prosecutor. I was a vertical prosecutor, which means I handle it from initial charging through appeal. And so I did that for probably about 5 or 6 years. And so I handled all of those cases for the office. And then I transitioned to the narcotics unit, which is great, because dealing with drug cases, you're dealing with a lot of constitutional issues, search and seizure, Fourth Amendment law, somebody's coming into your home. And so that really exposed me to search warrants and protecting them, having, confidential informants, protecting that information. So I did that for about 3 years. And some of these assignments overlap. So my timing is going to seem like, wow, she was there for 20 years. And then from there, and of course, along the way, I handled felonies that I was interested in. And then from there, once Mr. Tuttle passed, Barbara Uke was elevated to district attorney, and she had been handling the sexual assault and child abuse cases. And so I took that over from her, and I did that for about 2.5 years. And then right now, I just, in the last 7 weeks, I did 2 25 to life jury trials, and then we have the Fowler case coming up. So we're busy preparing for that right now.
And just for those who aren't familiar with the Fowler case, just a tiny basic summary of it.
Yeah, the basic summary is a 12-year-old juvenile has been charged with the homicide of his 8-year-old sister.
Okay, so obviously not your typical case for really anywhere.
No, I believe, according to the FBI, he is the youngest alleged offender for a sibling homicide.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you taking the lead on this?
Barbara and I are handling it jointly. Okay. We work very well together. It's a complicated case. There's a lot of evidence to go through, so we're co-counsel.
Okay, and we'll see how that one turns out. How do you handle these big cases along with the campaign? Is that a tough balance for you?
It's not. My obligations and my responsibility lie to my employer and the citizens of Calaveras County and the people of the state of California. So I'm the type of individual, when I have a trial coming up, I kind of go into trial mode, and really nothing else matters absent my family. So the campaign kind of dies at that point for me, and I do what I need to do to, be successful on a case.
Right. So going from deputy district attorney to superior court judge must have taken quite a bit of thought, even considering to go. That's certainly a big step.
It is.
And a lot of responsibility and a whole different type of workload.
Yeah.
So you first had applied to the governor when the appointment was available, correct?
Yes.
And so I guess that's when that decision was first made in your mind. Okay,
yes.
I'm ready to do this.
Yes.
So take us through that thought process.
That was, when I started, it was Judge Mawhinney and Judge Martin, and quite frankly, I thought they'd be here forever. I mean, I didn't envision one of them or both of them retiring. And so when Judge Mawhinney retired, it's like, wow, what's going to happen to the court? What about the the makeup and the structure? And I am I like to be challenged, and I have accomplished a lot at the district attorney's office throughout my career, and I feel like I'm ready for that next challenge. So the decision to actually apply was fairly natural. It was, hey, I can absolutely do that. I'm absolutely qualified. That would be a good fit for me. We'll see what happens.
So you came to the decision and applied, and the governor ended up not going with you. There were quite a few people who applied.
Yes.
How did you take that news when the announcement was finally made after, what was it, like 2 years or so?
Yeah, it was a really long time. Well, it was fine. It was fine. I mean, everything happens for a reason. Quite frankly, that door was closed, but then immediately thereafter, Judge Martin announced his retirement, and it's like, wow, that's kind of even a better position for me because Judge Martin handles all the crime for the county, and I'm a criminal attorney. I handle a lot of crime for my office, so I thought that was a very good fit.
Now, with Department 1 and Department 2, can you kind of just explain how those two departments work?
Sure. So ultimately the way that they work is how the two sitting judges decide they're going to divide the workload. So when the court moved from the old courthouse to the new courthouse in November, it was decided that Judge Martin would handle all the criminal, the juvenile, which is a crime, and the CPS dependency cases, and then the Department 2 judge, who is now Judge Swift, would handle all of the civil stuff. And of course, my opponent still handles the child support, and he does the case managements for the civil calendar. But ultimately, it's how the two judges want to divide it.
So could that division completely change if the judges sat down and said, we're going to switch the criminal and the civil? It
could. I would hope that if and when the judges decide to do that, they look at the strengths of the individuals and what their personal background is. I mean, it wouldn't make sense to give an individual who has a completely civil background, the criminal calendar. So I would hope they would take those things into consideration, yeah.
Right, okay. Before we move into some more questions kind of about you as a judge, I was hoping you would explain the limitations that you have as a candidate in answering some questions.
Sure. So there are ethical canons that apply to judges and attorneys. But one that applies to judges and judicial candidates is that we can't talk about or express an opinion on a subject matter that might come before the court. So if you were to ask me, hey, how would you decide on these facts? I can't answer that question.
Right, okay. So anyway, that's kind of a special thing for judges that maybe other elected officials who are running for something or candidates would not have that limitation.
Exactly.
Right, okay. So in terms of a Superior Court judge, how do you view that position? What are the responsibilities in your mind of a Superior Court judge?
I think a Superior Court judge has to absolutely uphold the law. I think that individual has to be fair. They have to be an excellent listener. You have to take into account both sides of an issue before you come to a decision. They have to be ethical. I think they have to use common sense. You're being placed into a position where you are affecting another individual in one way or another. So you have to be very conscientious about what you're doing and, above board on everything.
And what kind of a schedule and workload would a Superior Court judge have to face?
Well, I can tell you what the judges do in court. I can't really tell you what they do behind the scenes. I imagine, obviously they review search warrants, they review petitions, they prepare for hearings and trials. But in court, you have to be up to speed on the case that you're appearing on. So there's that preparation. You absolutely have to know the law as it applies to whatever case you're on. You have to know the rules of evidence backwards and forwards, because if an attorney's trying to get something in and you're like, gosh, I don't remember what the rules were about that one, that's no good. You have to be able to make evidentiary rulings. You've been in court, there are objections made there have to be a proper basis for an objection. There's courtroom procedure. There's a lot of stuff that a judge has to stay on top of. They are the controller of the courtroom, if you will.
Right. And in order to, I know that because you spent so much time in the court, you're familiar with this, but there must be even more things that you probably are reading up on and making sure that you're even more familiar with. And is that something that you've been spending a lot of time, preparing for this position in the event that you might win?
Yeah, it's not fun reading, it's not reading that you do, the normal person does after a long day at work, but I'm brushing up on the family code and the civil codes and, things like that to refresh myself on, things that you need to know as a judge.
In terms of who would make a good judge, do you think it's important for this person to be in county or have a long history here and know not just how to be a good judge, but understand the county itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important, but I don't necessarily know that location in the county is important. Personally, I've devoted, gosh, it'll be nearly 15 years come December to this county. I've had opportunities to go to Sonora, the Tuolumne County DA's office, and I've developed significant ties to this community. I support a lot of charities here. I love going to the different fundraisers and things. I have a lot of friends here. This is more really of a home to me than where I lay my head at night, you know what I mean? Yeah. So in that respect of knowing the community, absolutely. But you have to take in consideration, if a judge knows absolutely everybody, there's going to come a time when someone comes before that individual and you're going to have to say, sorry, I can't hear your case because I know you. And so that judge would be recused. So there is something to be said for living out of county and maybe not having those close personal connections with everybody in the community.
Right, yeah, that's got to be a challenge for judges who just happen to know everybody in the community.
Right.
Because they don't want to recuse themselves in every single case.
Exactly, that makes them a little ineffective.
In terms of explaining your judicial philosophy to the voters, how would you go about doing that?
Again, just reiterating what I said before. I am a very, in my job right now, I'm a truth seeker. My job is not to convict someone for the sake of a statistic, or conviction rate. My job is to get to the truth. And sometimes the truth is, hey, that individual is not guilty. That case needs to be dismissed. Sometimes it is where I have to do a jury trial, like the last two that were 25 to life cases. So my judicial philosophy is to absolutely uphold the law, uphold the Constitution. It's to do what is right. It's to be fair and reasonable and to listen.
And in terms of looking toward the future, what are some challenges that you foresee facing if elected?
Well, the biggest challenge is obviously AB 109. Which, as you know, is a sentencing scheme that totally changed the felony sentencing scheme that we had. Do you want me to elaborate on what AB 109 is?
For those who don't know,
okay.
Yes.
Sure. So AB 109 effectively took about 500 cases, felony crimes, and made them not eligible for state prison. So the options for that type of a conviction are, one, you get probation and you go to local county jail, or two, you don't get probation and you go to local county prison. So you're going to the same place, you're taking up the same bed space. But individuals who can go to local county prison can effectively, they can be sentenced up to any number of years. So for example, let's say somebody is sentenced to 10 years. They're serving it in the local county jail. For that 10 years, they're taking up a bed space that would have gone to someone who's only serving, 10 days, 6 months. So what we're seeing is a lot of individuals who have shorter times to serve, misdemeanants primarily, they're not serving their time because there's no bed space for them. When the new jail opened, it in effect only created 15 more beds than our old jail had because we can't afford to staff it. So AB 109 has caused quite a few problems. And then on top of that, individuals who come out on parole, the majority of them no longer have a state parole officer. They are shipped back to the county where they went from, and they are returned to a probation officer. And that individual is now responsible for supervising them when, in effect, they couldn't supervise them the first time that actually sent them to prison. So what I would like to see happen is a reentry court. I think that would be a very good idea. I'm a part of the drug court team, which is an evidence-based methodology that brings together different agencies that have a pretty significant involvement in an offender's life. So what we do is we try rehabilitation in a very strict way to help them be successful. And I think if we could do something like that for the population that is coming out of prison, that's coming back to our community and help hold them accountable, I think that would be better for Calaveras County than to just leave them to a probation officer to supervise.
That you mentioned that as kind of one of your goals that you'd like to see. What are some other main goals, if elected, that you would like to work toward as a Superior Court judge?
So I would like to see a veterans court. I'm married to a vet, so you know, I kind of have a little bit of firsthand knowledge about what vets go through. And so actually right now it's very exciting because we have a team put together that's trying to initiate a veterans court for our courthouse right now. I think that would be very good. Another really good thing to have happen would be a mental health court. You know, sometimes you'll be reading this report and you'll go, okay, there's a mental issue here somewhere, you know, and so, you know, should that be individual, should that person be treated by the criminal justice system? Not necessarily, you know, sometimes it's, you know, they need mental health treatment, which is different. So I think that could be easier addressed if you had experts in those fields to come together to advise a judge, you know, hey, here's a treatment plan for this person. Jail's not going to help this guy. You know, we need to go a different route. So I would like that. You know, I'd also like to, honestly, I'd like to meet with local attorneys to figure out, you know, hey, what are some time management things we can save? You know, we don't want, you know, private attorneys sitting around charging their clients $250 an hour to wait in court. So, you know, just some different strategies like that to help be more efficient.
Okay, and in terms of that, there's this new building that was just built, which is state of the art. What impact do you believe that has had on the court system?
Impact on the court system. I mean, it's certainly prettier, but, you know, I don't know that it's had a great impact. You know, we are able to have more courtrooms going, so that certainly is a plus. You know, it used to be if we had a trial and the Board of Supervisors was doing something in the boardroom, you know, we would have to wait. So that is definitely a plus, that it can be more timely and address due process issues.
Otherwise, just big, pretty building. And
yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know.
Right. Okay, we're just about out of time here. We're coming up on the general election. Is there anything you'd like to leave our viewers with?
Yes, I would like the viewers to definitely check out their candidates. This election is kind of historic in the county. There hasn't been a judicial election for over 20 years. And this year, the entire judiciary is going to be selected by the public. So absolutely check out your candidates, get to know their experience, what they're qualified at, what they might be doing, you know, what their track history is. And I'm confident if everyone does that, they will come away thinking Dana Pfeil is the one for the job.
Dana, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining me on this edition of Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and I hope you join me next time.